Hey, everybody out there on YouTube. I'm Jay. That's Aaron.
Heyo.
That's Tony.
Hello, hello.
And welcome to the pre-show show just for YouTube. Today we are covering Letterkenny, and I have got a cocktail for it. On this show, they make frequent reference to a Caesar, and I was curious if you guys were familiar with the Caesar.
No, until Christy pointed out to me that it was an alcoholic beverage, I thought they were weirdly talking about Caesar salad. And I was like, that's a
Same
weird
too.
thing
I
to
was
be
like,
talking about.
Fair enough.
The first place my brain went was the Caesar salad.
So a Caesar is a cocktail popular in Canada, and it's very similar to a Bloody Mary, where the base is going to be tomato juice and vodka, but instead of tomato juice, it's clamato, which is tomato juice flavored with clam broth, which sounds a lot grosser than it actually is. But it's also usually spicy. You put hot sauce in it. Most people put Tabasco. So I have prepared for myself a Caesar. I have never tried this before, and I am going to give this a go for the good old Canada.
All right.
So I've got it in my shaker tin here. I've got a nice glass full of ice rimmed with celery salt. Got some freshly cracked black pepper in there. So I'm going to give this.
What is celery salt?
It's celery flavored salt.
Okay. So like the worst part of stuffing at Thanksgiving, flavored salt. Got it.
Yeah. I also had to Google that. So. Here we go. Oh, wow. I will be damned. That is delicious.
Does it in any way taste like a Caesar salad?
I mean, in the way that a good Caesar salad has like the freshly cracked black pepper, and sometimes if you get a really good fresh one that has kind of a, it's got a very, I don't know if I want to use the word pungent, but it's got a sharp dressing.
Yeah, well, like the original, I think, has anchovies. Like the original Caesar dressing had anchovies in it. So yeah, that's my when you say clam juice, I was like, maybe there's a connection there. The seafood, the spice, the zest, but no.
Yeah, could be, but wow, that's tasty.
Is it?
You can add it to your rotation.
Red like blood, and Caesar was murdered or whatever.
Oh, the different Caesar, I think.
Like Bloody Mary, but.
I definitely have a friend who lives in Canada, and I asked him a bunch of questions about Letterkenny and about Caesar specifically, and he's like, "Oh yeah, those are gross."
Oh man.
Yeah, he did not care for them.
Wow. Well, I was surprised to read in my extensive research, which included reading some Wikipedia articles, but I came across a claim that in all of North America, 1/3 of the clamato juice consumed is consumed in Canada.
Wow.
Which surprised me because that's something a little more associated with Mexico, with micheladas and such, which is also something I really enjoy. But yeah, apparently Caesar's clamato juice very popular in Canada.
Number one, the person who is like, you know what, this tomato juice needs clam broth and alcohol. Like, I just imagine that has to be a Depression era like frozen tundra drink. Like that. It's like, what do we got? What do we got left to drink? Well, we've got booze, tomato juice, and some clam broth from earlier. Do you want to get hammered? Sure.
I mean, it's got what I think an Instagram recipe would refer to as a nice umami base note.
Everything has umami now. It's ridiculous. That's fair. That's fair, though. It sounds like it's all umami flavors that they've chosen.
All right.
Maybe it was one of those donkey drinks that just turned out well, so it became a thing.
Yeah, it was like, native donkey juice.
Is that a thing?
I don't know.
Well, in the show, when they run out of stuff, they just throw all of the alcohol they have together, and they call it donkey juice or something.
Oh, there you go.
So maybe that was like somebody's donkey juice, and they're like, hey, this thing turned out all right.
God bless Canada. Well, you guys ready to get into Letterkenny?
Let's roll.
All right, let's we can dispense with the clap. And I will head over to my notes app, and we will be off and running. Ahem. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Show, probably the world's best TV review podcast. Welcome to episode 53. Today, we review the first 2 seasons of the 2016 Crave TV comedy series created, written by, and starring Jared Keeso. Well, if you don't put it on the internet, how's gonna people know what you did? Today on the Show, Letterkenny. I am very proud to welcome you inside the broadcast booth. I am Jay. I'm joined, as always, today by my 2 Hall of Famers. Aaron, how are you now?
Pretty good. And you?
Not so bad. Tony, how are you now?
Oh, how can I follow that? You took all the lines. I'm doing all right.
Check out our social media for news about the show. That includes notices about our postponed 2023 tour and cruise, along with plenty of bonus content, especially the YouTube channel. Check out that for a special cocktail hour to open the show. But you can find us on social media at the Show Pod. You can also email us at the Show TV podcast at gmail.com. That YouTube channel is Mandamus Radio. You got to do it. You can find me individually at Jesu Esponte. Aaron, where can we find you?
At Tenacious Aaron on Twitter.
And Tony?
At TPinQuite on Instagram.
All righty. For those of you with us on the live stream, welcome. We may take calls later in the show if we've got time. So get those calls lined up. You can call 888-787-1310, 888-787-1310. Before we talk about Letterkenny, boys, how about we take a roadie over to the unofficial scoreboard? What you boys been watching? Anything you want to put up on the board?
So because it has been, the fall Halloweenish time period, me and Christy have watched through Todd and the Book of Pure Evil and the subsequent, after it was canceled, animated movie that they did to finish it up. I give it a solid 7.5. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite kind of weird Canadian movies. Speaking of Canadian TV shows. But it basically is like Scooby-Doo meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Ash versus the Evil Dead. And Degrassi. Add Degrassi in there, and I think you've literally hit all the high points. And for some reason, Jay from Jay and Silent Bob is in it as a janitor. So had a lot of fun watching that this month. It's been real busy with work, so hadn't had time to get too much into anything outside of that. But that has been what I have watched.
I feel you. How about you, Tony?
I've also been pretty busy moving into a different house. I did watch The Northman recently. I think it's got Alexander Skarsgård and Anya Taylor-Joy in it. It's that Robert Eggers movie. It was pretty good. I'd give it like an 8, solid 8. It reminded me because about Vikings, about a Viking revenge story. It takes place in Iceland and stuff. I guess it starts in Norway, I believe, but it kind of reminded me of when we went to that little historic, not a village, but they had little historic buildings and stuff like that. There was some buildings that remind me of that.
The Skansen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was good.
I've got a bunch of friends who are really into that director, and they raved about it for a while. They said it was very visually stunning, enthralling.
Definitely
strange. Yeah. I didn't hear strange, but they said enthralling. I guess maybe that means the same thing. But at the same time, I heard other people who were like, it's a little slow at times. So I don't know if that's necessarily translates to everybody, because Christy loves slow stuff, so she'd be like, oh, it's perfect pace.
Yeah, I think I was just in the mood for it. So, sometimes movies get you in a good mood for it.
Jay, what about you?
Oh, Smile, that horror movie. It was all right.
Oh. All right, just okay.
It's I don't know if it's just me. it's like horror movies lose me when you see the bad
monster.
guy. Yeah, it's like I think I said it before. Like Jeepers Creepers, the first one was like, oh, this is scary. And then I saw the monster. I'm like, this is a joke. It wasn't quite that bad, but the monster wasn't really doing it for me in that movie. But it was pretty good. It was definitely creepy with everyone like smiling creepily at the main character as they went through the movie.
Not creepy, but there definitely is a 2020 Tremors movie called Shrieker Island that has John Heater, Napoleon Dynamite, as the main protagonist, and it is very poorly acted and very highly like After Effects. So if you like shit B-list movies, worth a gander. It's funny whenever the entire cast of Ragtag Bad Guys are putting more effort into it than Napoleon Dynamite is.
That's a shame.
Jay, what about you?
Well, speaking of B movies, I took in what I think you might call a modern B movie, which was a Peacock original by the by the name of Meet Cute. And
okay, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Did you watch it?
No, Christy had me watch. It's the one with Pete Davidson and the girl Kelly Kuoko, whatever from
Kaylee Kuoko.
Yeah, can't pronounce her name. But no, I watched the trailer for it, so I do know the basic premise.
I mean, bear with me here, but it's a time travel rom-com starring Pete Davidson of all people and Kaylee Kuoko, and believe it or not, pretty good. And actually surprisingly dark, like much darker than the marketing might lead you to believe. So if you're a fan of any one of those elements, I would say, if you got 90 minutes, give it a shot.
How, like, on the Future Man time travel scale of believability, where does it rank? Like,
I think it cleverly takes the route of Midnight in Paris, where it doesn't give any thought to the mechanics of it. It's just kind of presented as this girl has access to a time machine and uses it, and you don't really the mechanics of that don't really matter to the plot. So
fair enough.
I enjoyed it. If any of those things are up your alley, I'd say maybe give that a shot. Something else, playing off of what you said, Tony, to also speak of Ms. Anya Taylor-Joy. Last night, my lady wife and I took in Last Night in Soho, Edgar Wright's most recent film, and it was very good. It's I don't know if you guys are familiar, but it's a modern day girl moves to London to go to fashion school, and at night finds herself transported back to 1960s London, and plot ensues.
Is that different than the one Midnight in Paris? It sounds like the same movie, just different. Soho.
More of a suspense kind of mystery type thing.
I also had that similar thoughts at the beginning of the movie, like, oh, like is this just going to be Midnight in Paris? But I think one of the very fundamental differences is that we're taking it from the point of view of an 18-year-old girl, and then
not a 40-year-old man who's trying to find love, written by an 80-year-old man who's found way too much love.
Yeah, exactly. It's not Owen Wilson's midlife crisis. It's a little more about God, I've gone through the rabbit hole. Everything is Lynchian now, but it was the most Lynchian movie I've seen in a while.
This is what is great. This is why Twin Peaks stays with you. It does. It warps the way you see media, art. Like, Lynch has so much influence. I'm so glad that you at least have the perspective now. Like, it doesn't matter if they like it or they hate it. If someone watches it, like, you can refer to it. You're like, remember that scene? It's like, yes, fuck, I remember that scene.
Yeah, exactly. Because a big theme of the film is that anything that's glamorized still has a dark side. Anything beautiful comes at a price, which is just David Lynch all up and down.
Yep. Oh no, I without seeing it, that's 100% a fan favorite of David Lynch. So
yeah. So if you're at all a fan of Edgar Wright, he's the one who did Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, World's End, Baby Driver. Big fan of his. I thought it was great. It's on HBO Max. Check it out.
Going back to Meet Cute, I think it was a Hulu original, Palm Springs with Andy Samberg. And
yeah, it's good.
Christina, that one was really good. It's not like a time loop instead of time travel, but I guess those are kind of connected.
More Groundhog's Day, less time travel, right?
Yeah.
Like caught in a loop as opposed to choosing to relive over and over again.
Right.
I saw that one too. Enjoyed it quite a lot. I really enjoyed just about anything with. Oh God, I should know her name, but the lead in that.
Kristen Minotti or something. Minotti.
Yeah. The How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Spoiler alert.
I liked her better in Palm Springs than I did in How I Met Your Mother.
That show ended 10 years ago, didn't it?
And that she's not even the best plot point, right? It's Robin. It's been Robin the whole time. So we saw it in the first episode. We didn't even watch the whole show. Spoiler.
Oh, humbug.
What?
Well, pitter patter, boys. You want to talk about Letterkenny?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Aaron, this was your pick, so take it away. Introduce us to Letterkenny.
So, I mean, Letterkenny is a very interesting show, Canadian show. And as you said, it's written by Jared Kiso. Is that how you pronounce his name? And it's directed by Jacob Tinnery, which is Glenn. Glenn is hands down my favorite character in the entire series. Anytime Glenn's on the screen, I can't help but smile, laugh. The satire, the poking fun at culture, all of it that they use Glenn for. The fact that the director was like, I want to be one of the most ridiculous characters in the show, and I want to always push it to 11. That is what I love about Glenn. But anyways, Letterkenny is a show Letterkenny is a show about, a group of people who live in the small town of Letterkenny. It's about 5,000 people. It really centers on our main characters. I totally just blanked. I've had so much going on. Wayne, Daryl,
Squirrely
Dan, and the sister Katie. And this is our core main troop, which all the stories kind of bounce off of. But throughout the town, there's a bunch of different groups that they interact with, whether it be the people at the Ag Hall with McMurray and his wife. Which, again, McMurray's wife is the girlfriend in Star Trek, which I thought was a great, connect. It's funny where, a lot of these, you see some of these actors in other shows and other things, which is really cool. But then we also have the Skids or Meth Heads with Stewart and
Stewart.
And we have the hockey players, which are, not the Degens. Apparently, the hockey players are not the Degens, but the Degens are from Upcountry. And they show up from time to time. And then we also have the religious group and the natives. And that kind of is the broad groups of people that are involved in the story of the first two seasons. And the bartender. And we have Gail the bartender, yes. Gail is by far the second most ridiculous character in my opinion. It's Glenn and Gail are two of the most over the top figures in Letterkenny.
And they toned her down in season 2, but season 1, Gail, I was like, this is my least favorite character by far. It was just there was a line of too much, and they were just over the line with about 90% of her character.
Well, I've got a very sad theory about Gail.
Okay.
Is Gail just an alcoholic, really? Because when we first meet her at the bar, she's telling us that she's off the wagon, and in that first conversation with her, she's not ridiculous at all. But then she pours the shots for the boys. They take them, they tap them on the counter, and what does Gail say? She says, "Oh, I won't be rude." She starts drinking, and that's when the hip gyrating starts.
Yeah. And so you think that she's just been lit since episode 1?
Yes. And especially, I think it's the fart book episode where they're summoning people to the farm, and one of those people is Gail. because I think she's being too overtly sexual. But she yells at them, and then as she retreats, she jumps on a bicycle and bicycles away, because she's had a DWI and she can't drive.
Also adds up context clues.
Yeah.
I think that it's a fair, and also I don't know, I can't remember. I've seen this a lot, but did Modine's make it through season 2? I can't remember.
Still closed in season 2.
Okay. Well, I just know that Modine's burns down numerous times throughout the show. So they never show it. It's just always referenced as, well, since Modine's burnt down. And so I wonder if Gale also ends up burning down Modine's in the future. So but I will say that Gale, it's interesting because I was talking with Christy about this. There's not a lot of black people in Letterkenny. It's mostly white people, and then we also have the natives. We do have Gale and her cousin is probably the only other black people that are really presented in the show. But Christy was like, yeah, but the natives are kind of like Canada's black people. That's more of the cultural interaction between the natives and Canadians than probably as many black people out there. I was like, that's fair. Which is why there's a much larger storyline with what is her name? Tanis. Tanis.
Oof, Tanis.
So
I like Tanis.
I think a lot of the characters in Letterkenny are very well created. They're weird, gross, interesting. I love the hockey players, Jonesy and Riley. I fucking quote them all the time. Dirty fucking dangles.
I'm gonna go crush some sandos.
So, we only have these 12 episodes and a special. St. Patrick's Day special for the first 2 seasons, and I feel like having rewatched back through these, they're kind of getting their footing with the first season. They have the ideas, the characters. I honestly think Fart Book and the Shark Tank episode both represent their kind of social commentary version of an episode, where Fart Book is really addressing the things that in 2016 people were annoyed with Facebook, right? And I kind of feel the same way with the Shark Tank, Uncle Eddie's Trust, where they're kind of doing the whole Shark Tank and all the different ideas. Those just, I feel like, were pop culture juggernauts at the time, right? And things that they could easily poke at. But otherwise, Super Soft Birthday, I didn't quite understand what the big deal about the birthday thing was. I think that was maybe a little bit more Canadian. But I have to say one of my favorite sequences is the cold open with the alliteration all the way through the alphabet with Daryl and Wayne. I fucking love that scene. So
that's a big component of this show, is that the hicks that you otherwise might not expect to be so verbose, in fact, are able to rattle off this language. That was something that really makes the show stand out.
It's the whole, if I make this reference, and it's maybe not as great as I think it is, but it has a very Aaron Sorkin-esque type of feel to it, because it's that quick wit, quick response. There's not a lot of downtime. And I also want to say that they use a lot of self-reference well. Like in the opening episode of the first season, we have the Jonesy and Riley that are shitting on Wayne, because Angie broke up with him or cheated on him. Heard she cheated on you, bud. And then at the beginning of season 2, or maybe episode 2 of season 2, whenever Katie is cheated on or accused of cheated on Riley and Jonesy, they flip that entire intro line from episode 1 back at Riley and Jonesy. And I didn't catch that the first time I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's the same thing that they said to him in episode 1. So I like that there's little kind of Easter eggs where they kind of reference themselves or make kind of a callback to an earlier part in the episode really well.
A lot of good running jokes on the show too.
Very memeable, very, very quotable.
Yeah, I think that's where it shines. And I can't even keep up with all the quotable things, but it's It's like a quote factory. This show.
It really is.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Did this show, did it leave you wanting for backstory?
Like, do you want to know how Boots and Ginger got their infamous reputation for fucking an ostrich, or like, what do you mean backstory?
I mean more about the main characters. Like, where are Wayne and Katie's parents?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's a little bit of just kind of dropped into the universe feel, right?
Mhm.
There are, like, I don't want to say this sounds weird, but where are the parents, the adults, Daryl's parents, Dan, Katie? Why do Katie and Wayne live together on the farm?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, we see almost none of them doing really any work, and this farm that they live on, the farmhouse is right on the road, which is kind of weird. But I definitely agree with you in describing this show as Trailer Park Boys written by Aaron Sorkin. I think another way I might describe it is Canadian Seinfeld.
Interesting show about nothing.
Yeah, because so much of the show is just buddies talking about the minutia of their daily lives and what happened before, what they're going to do afterwards. It doesn't really matter. The cohesion of the scene is just these people and their relationships and their banter.
No, I would agree. I think Seinfeld's a good comparison, especially like the scenes where they're like sitting at the porch, like leaning on the rail, talking about something.
Yeah.
Like when I think Squirrely Dan's asking about his dating life.
Maybe not even Canadian Seinfeld. Maybe just rural Seinfeld. Because my lady wife is from the Midwest, and where these people live in Ontario, it's south of Detroit. Like, it might as well be Ohio. It's just on the other side of the border. And so I think there's a ton of overlap between these people's experiences and a lot of the American Midwest.
I like that. That's interesting. Well, and I think one of the other things I really like about Letterkenny is that the Hicks don't just fall into the stereotype, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're Squirrely Dan taking classes for women's studies, right? And he gets upset about Stormy getting roofied, right? And he's like, Professor Patricia would have a heyday with this,
She would literally shit a brick.
Literally shit a brick. Like, I think that the way that they like went into that and had these dialogues, right, and have these discussions through the lens of the Hicks is also really great.
Yeah.
And again, I also think like their principles. That's another thing that I think is really, really great about this is the concept of principles in a show. Like, man's got to have a code. When a man asks for help, you help him out. Those types of things. Even like Wayne getting into these fights, which could be considered toxic masculinity. But after the fight, he helps them up. They have a beer, that it's more of a ritual and less about actually hurting somebody. I think that these are all very interesting ways to convey and explore these ideas in a time period, especially whenever masculinity and things like that are kind of in question or under fire, however you want to discuss it, from different perspectives. So to me, in a lot of ways, they have ways to go. It's really funny, like the insecurity that Wayne has with Daryl whenever they're talking about it. It's like, you ever doing it with a girl? Yeah, with a girl, of course. But at the same time, they take pretty progressive stances. Like, what do you got against gay people? Nothing. They never did nothing to me. The Duck Dynasty reference. So I think that the show does a really good job of kind of making the characters feel both like real to a certain degree of these people feel like rural people. At the same time, exploring some of the ideas, issues, discussion points of the day from different perspectives. But that might just be me.
No, totally. I totally agree with that. Especially, I think the skids are also another good example of that kind of thing. The skids I didn't really get, I've got to admit, because it felt like They were just like any of the other factions that we see represented here, that they're presented as flawed human beings with their positive and negative qualities, but ultimately sympathetic, I think, is something you could describe all of our lead characters here. But the Skids lost me at the end of season 1, where they decided they were gonna flood the town with meth.
Yeah.
Like, it was just kind of hard to come back from that and root for them anymore.
Well, no, and again, I think that there's also a progression of those characters, right? I think that we see Stuart breaking away from the Skids, having his whole arc with Katie, right? You know, we're gonna go see The Weeknd. It's Tuesday, Stuart. I loved that fucking joke.
That was great. That was greatness.
But like a lot of times these characters feel more like vehicles for jokes to some degree. It's like we need to use the Skids for this, or we need to use the Ag Hall Dickens. So I this is the thing that's funny about this show is how much you can quote it. But it's really also funny, McMurray, how much he changes from season 1 to season 2. I don't know if you guys noticed it. But his accent got real harder, like thicker in season 2.
Well, season 1, he's just like, he's really concerned with like fashion. He's like descriptive of people's clothes and colors, like very descriptive of that. And then like, didn't do that hardly at all in season 2. He's just like a Ag Hall dude.
Yeah,
they have to put in episodes. Because like season 1, McMurray, I was like, this dude, I really liked him, but it lost me in season 2.
He represents kind of more ridiculous of the Hick mentality, I think. Like he's supposed to be on that more Gale kind of scale. The Gale scale, we're gonna have to start using that. Like how ridiculous is a character on the Gale scale? Because Gale is the most ridiculous character. I put McMurray at like a 7 on the Gale scale there. Glenn's up there with Gale though, but in a good way. He nails it. Like when he's eating the popsicles with the
incredible.
Yeah, with the
Jonesy.
hockey players. Yeah. You guys need to talk to God. Well, can we just talk to you, buddy? Yeah, you're right here, buddy. That's what I've been saying this whole time. So, I don't know. What about you guys? Like, what's your favorite episode? Which episode do you think stands out the most to you?
Coming in, I think I like the dates one, but I can't remember exactly why. Is that the one that had the porno ending? Because that part cracked me up.
Oh, the one where he's going on dates?
It's 4 high-pitched yeses. Yeah, the one where he goes on dates.
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck. the ain't nothing wrong with a little bit of yesing.
I think my favorite was the St. Patrick's Day special.
Okay, very good.
I really enjoyed, and this is something that showed up in multiple episodes. Whenever Daryl would get drunk, especially at like a dance or like a nightclub atmosphere, he's always got 2 drinks in his hands, but he's still dancing.
Yep.
Like, loved that energy. Loved the energy of Mrs. McMurray and Katie as well. Love that.
Yeah, apparently the McMurrays have a pretty open relationship. Like that seems to be a part of their backstory.
And the repeated McMurray and Wayne going out and smoking a cigarette together, and McMurray is just getting more and more worked up about his wife.
Well, the Degens. He was getting worked up about the Degens. Nobody's having a good time. Remember?
Those Degens from Upcountry.
I wish, at least for streaming, like I guess I didn't know it was a special, but like it just really threw me off.
Yeah.
Having that after the cliffhanger of, I guess, episode 6, because that was episode 7. And so I was just like, I kept waiting for like the story elements of the previous episode to come up, like in the story. Right. And I was like, okay, what is going on? It just like really took me out of it. I wish they would have just put that right before, just flip those 2 episodes. I think I would have liked it a lot more. Because I was too expecting.
I don't disagree with you. Out. They have those like holiday specials throughout. Like they have like a Halloween special, Easter special, Christmas special. Like you probably could take all the specials and separate them out and watch them separate. You know, they don't actually fit into the story anywhere. So, they do that from time to time.
Speaking of the cliffhanger, I have been known to be oblivious, but up until Tanis announced that she was pregnant, I did not pick up at all that she and Wayne had been conflagrating.
At the bonfire, when
At
he
the
went to go
bonfire.
see if that dude was real, she like
Yeah.
told him they were going to cook his steak exactly how he wanted it, and then she grabbed his belt.
Yeah. That was the indication that they were going to do it.
Gotcha. Now, I will say something that turned
That
me
was a
off
really
about this
Texas.
show.
I will say.
I was turned off a little bit about just how much this show had women constantly throwing themselves at Wayne, the
Yes.
creator and writer of this show. Like, buddy, come on. I don't know what you're proving to yourself. You're obviously a very talented and attractive man. Like, you don't have to write a story where women are just constantly throwing themselves at you.
To be fair though, everybody's throwing themselves at Wayne, Glenn included, and Gail. So like Christy has made the comment, she was like, I feel like they just wrote everybody to be super horny, and they just directed 90% of that at Wayne. But you know what? Squirrely Dan apparently pulls. So
he does.
He does pull.
Gets his prostate milked.
That's God what I appreciate about you.
God bless him for being so open with his friends,
Yeah. And he's unapologetic too. He's like, it feels good, goddamn. I don't get, like, is there a payoff coming? I mean, I'm not complaining about Katie wearing skimpy clothes, but is there like in later seasons, like it's more than just like having this woman like dress?
Are you think is Katie's character develop at all?
I mean, is there a reason? Is there a reason? Like, is it more than just she's hot and the kind of like, I don't want to call it objectification, but it's almost like that. It's just like, okay, she's hot, so let's just have her Daisy Dukes and crop tops or bikinis in random moments.
What I will say about Katie is Katie definitely has her own story arc later. I would say that season 3, she supposedly leaves it into season 2, comes back season 3, has kind of adventures.
Her and Squirrely Dan are like the most side character-y main characters of this show. I feel Squirrely like Dan. It's like Wayne's show, and like even Daryl like really doesn't have much. They're just there to like be in conversations. I feel.
Yeah, they're it's the banter, right? Like that's where it's the Aaron Sorkin like kind of effect, right? You need to have those interplays so that you can have the arguments between Wayne and Daryl, or between, how really whenever Squirrely Dan's telling the story about getting his prostate milk, the whole point is to see Wayne and Daryl's like shutting down and like being
just playing
uncomfortable and starting to play catch with each other, right? Like that's the reason for that joke. So I think that again, season 1 and 2, this is early. They're figuring out the characters, the backstory, who they are, where they're going to go. That's why McMurray changes so much. I don't think that they were happy with McMurray in season 1, and they wanted more of a different kind of voice from him, and a different kind of character. And I honestly think that the character ultimately develops into one I really like. If you do continue into season 3, there's some great monologues from McMurray, which are really, really funny. But and the funny thing is that Todd show that I was watching, Todd in the Book of Pure Evil, he's also in that randomly, but he plays like a heavy metal 80s guy. So it's a completely different character again. So, but
I did like season 2, well, except for McMurray, I liked season 2 versions of characters more than season 1. Like I thought Gail was toned down to like the right level. Like where season 1, where I was like, it's too much. Yeah, it wasn't too much for me in season 2. And like season 1, Glenn, I felt like was the Dean from Community, and then season 2, he was less like that, more of kind of his own character.
He's just not ready. No,
well, Aaron asked though, but he's just not ready.
He's just not ready.
Well, Aaron, you had mentioned that Glenn was a show stealer for you. I will absolutely agree with you. So Tony, is favorite character here, Glenn, otherwise?
I'm trying to think who's my favorite character. Yeah, he's like the most. I like him. I guess like a smaller character. I like Devin, especially like in the Farbook episode, being like
Yes.
the Mark Zuckerberg, Jesse Eisenberg character.
Devin is an interesting character. He does not stick it out long term with the show. I will say. I think that season 2 is the end of Devin's storyline.
No.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna say, like, I so wish that the Skids storyline had focused on Devin and not Stuart. I thought Devin was 10 times as interesting as Stuart was.
Yeah, I kept like wanting to like Stuart. Like I kind of did at the very beginning, and then I just kept wanting like something more, I guess, with his character, and I never quite got what I wanted, I guess, out of it.
I can feel that. Like to me, no character is perfect. I think that I love Roldy. Roldy's really funny, but
Yeah.
Stuart is one of those ones where I feel like he's just kind of another like a funnel for ridiculous, right? The statements that he makes like wondrous. I feel like I've met people like him, and
They wear
I almost
fedoras.
yeah, they wear fedoras. Yes, it's just the meth version of that guy. So
yes.
I will say the meth kind of resolves and the Skids are less skiddy later on, but they still stick around. So I do think that they develop into more really Roldan and Stewart. Anyone else is just rotated in the background at that point. But it's kind of like Riley and Jonesy, right? Look at the hockey players. They could probably throw any of them behind them and do those bits.
Yeah, how many are those characters supposed to be in high school, or are they already out of high school, or like
I definitely think it's like more like social.
They're in the junior league, and then they go into the senior league. So I don't really know how the age works.
I don't think it's
based
off school. I think it's just based off like community, different groups. I think that like you're moving up and difficulty. I don't know, because the guys that they start playing with are substantially older than they are, right?
Yeah, they're all married.
They're all married.
So I can weigh in here. I actually looked this up. Because this was bothering me. And so in Canada, you don't really have necessarily minor leagues for hockey in the way that we have professional minor leagues for a lot of different sports in the United States. There's junior hockey, and then there's the NHL. And junior hockey ends at age 21, and then that transitions into a very small number of senior hockey teams, which are semi-professional teams featuring players who are too old to be in junior hockey, being older than 21.
Senior dog shit hockey.
Yeah. So I think we hear Jonesy and Riley make reference to that in the first season. They're still on the junior team, but they're on their like last year of eligibility, so they're either 21 or 22.
Okay.
And then after that, in season 2, they're on the senior team with those older guys. But I really kind of struggled watching this show. Maybe, again, Twin Peaks has given me TV show PTSD here, where I'm like, how old is everyone?
Yeah.
I can see that. I did hear from my buddy. I asked him, I was like, so give me the rundown on Letterkenny. Like, he's like, the hockey players are well represented. He's like if you, any town that has like hockey players in it, like those are the kind of people they are. Yeah. But he referred to them as degenerates, and I was like, "Oh, you said degenerates?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's definitely something people say up here too. Is degenerates, degens." He said, "Very much Canadian culture." He said though, like in a town like Letterkenny, he said that they talk too fast. People would talk a lot slower. They'd stretch their words out a little bit more. So,
yeah, that's not my only complaint, but that's like there's so many jokes, but it's so fast, like my brain can't even process like what's being said half the time. Like I wish if they spoke at normal speed, I guess it wouldn't be the characters anymore, but it's just like I feel like I'm missing half of the funny as it goes by, like whizzes by my ears.
Subtitles saved me.
Yeah, subtitles helps a lot. And actually the subtitles were not bad. That's the other thing I will say, is that I felt like they actually did a good job catching most of the jokes, most of the lingo, like Ferda and all that stuff wasn't mistranslated per se.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's a Hulu original in quotes, as it's distributed in the United States by Hulu. So you would hope
I
that they
think
would.
that the newest season, it's kind of like whenever Netflix bought Trailer Park Boys. Like, I
Right.
think that the original seasons were on not Hulu, and then that they were picked up, but I might be wrong about that.
So how many seasons of the show have you seen?
I've seen 9.
Okay.
So
Two.
it like I said, it's
Tony.
the first like 5 or 6 I've seen multiple times. The last couple I've only seen like maybe once or twice.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where I just enjoy the cast, the characters. You know, they definitely have a spin-off just for Shoresy, which is fantastic if you do continue to watch. But it's basically just like a little hockey 6-episode series.
Have we met Shoresy on camera in the first 2 seasons?
I think the only time that maybe he's upside down naked, like
Yeah,
in
we
the
saw his
showers.
ass.
We saw his ass.
Yeah.
But it's Jared
Okay.
Kiso. It's Jared Kiso.
Oh, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
If you hear, it's just him doing a voice. So
But one thing that is very subjective to me, as all subjective things are, was that Wayne was almost word for word carbon copy of a very good friend I had in college.
Oh yeah.
That this
You lost him?
guy. Well, I mean, if you want to out him like that, yeah.
Who, this specific person?
He was a
I
rodeo
didn't use any
champion
last
from
names.
Nevada, and
Well, now
he
you're
was,
giving way more personal details than just a
That's
first
also
name.
true.
he was the toughest guy at our college by far, and like 100%, I think, like definitely would line up a series of guys to fight in his driveway, and I can see him like standing up from the table and going over to the phone and saying, "Yep, end of the laneway, don't come up the property."
Don't come up the property.
Like the way he dressed, the way he walked, the way he talked, I was like, these people must have known my friends. But that was me.
I didn't ever have any friends that fought. Like, that wasn't a thing that any of us were interested in. We'd rather play Ninja Turtles on the Super Nintendo than physically fight anybody. But I feel like I knew people who were like that in school, that were like aggressive. But they were always like mean aggressive. It was never just like, I could beat up that person for fun, boxing style.
But you just won the title of strongest or toughest guy in Letterkenny.
Yeah. And I think growing up in the suburbs, that wasn't something that anyone cared about.
I
Yeah.
liked Joint Boy.
Joint Boy too.
I love how he's rolling up and there's just smoke billowing out of the door. How do you
He's
get
just
his
like a
nickname?
bro, man. I want to be friends with Joint Boy. Like, he just always shows up when they need help. I mean, he's always polite.
Yep.
Except for when he kicked that dude in the nuts. Like,
Well,
that's kind of
but they were cooking bird of beef, man. Like, you can't sit there and let that sit on the grill. Like, he had to take care of business and get back for the bird of beef, you know?
Ferda.
4 minutes total. Flip once a minute. Get those grill marks on it. Heavily salt and peppered.
Well, are you gentlemen grillers? Do you have a grilling philosophy?
Honestly, let my wife do it.
Not professional.
My wife
just have
loves
it
to
on
grill,
there.
so
Because I felt that whole conversation of, I feel like anytime that I've gotten together with guy friends and we were going to make steak, like that's exactly the argument that was going on.
because everybody just has different preferences, right?
Everybody, just like anything else, everybody's convinced that the way they do it is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I watched the Twitch streamer Asmongold. He did an entire video where he showed how he cooks steak, and it was, pretty terrible. But had like 800,000 views of just him like overcooking a steak and cooking a baked potato in the microwave. And I was like, what? And I watched the whole thing. I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of those 800,000 views. But I was just like, why am I watching this? Why is this a video of this shitty guy making steak. He's not a shitty guy. Why is he making shitty steak? But I don't know.
Well,
people are interested.
if anybody out there wants to watch us make steak, 888-787-1310 at the Show Pod. Let us know.
Well, I think just to kind of put things in reference to some of our previous shows, I think across the board, Glenn was the Bobby. Was Gail the Donna?
Oh no, I would not give Gail the Donna.
Like, I'm curious, who's your Donna?
Ooh, I don't know if I have a Donna.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I guess maybe when I think of Donna, I'm thinking of like maybe this is unfair to Lara Flynn Boyle, but I'm thinking of performance that did not move me, performance that did not convince me.
You're saying that Letterkenny was cast well enough that you were moved by the performances.
There just really wasn't anybody here who didn't nail what they were, I guess.
What about Jenny? What about Jenny, Glenn's girlfriend? Jenny, where are you?
Oh, she's wearing the hood.
Mennonite.
I forgot about that. That's a super early episode.
It is that whenever they go to the church and like the girl licks Daryl's or Wayne's finger and Daryl's the back, I was like, "That's how they get you."
No, I don't know if I have a Donna, but my Audrey is definitely Tanis.
Oh yeah, Audrey's your Tanis, or Tanis your Audrey.
Oh yeah.
So Jay likes Tanis. Did you think that Tanis played dirty by bringing out the three-legged dog, or was that fair game?
That was incredible.
Oh.
See, at the end of season 1, I really liked that it felt like they united the factions under the banner of Letterkenny.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like that's what the show was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't really go back to that in season 2. So obviously there's 8 more seasons of the show, and I hope there's more of that there. I was disappointed in not seeing more of that in season 2.
I think it's kind of like, the Greeks all uniting to fight Persia. It's a moment in time where your differences are set aside, but once the issue is resolved, you go back to normal, and you're a Skid, you're a Hick, you're a Aghal, you're a native, whatever it is, that tribalism sets back in. So I think that as the show progresses, there are times and moments where that happens. But I feel you. I like that too. I like that. It kind of like, again, it gets back to those principles, right? Like they were using that to show off one of the principles that when a man asks for help, you help him.
Right.
So I like that too.
I just reminded me, what, like it's a well-written show, but what the most like well-written serious part was when Tanis was just like eviscerating Stuart. I was like, oh my, this is like some of the harshest, like, because it was all true, and it was just like, oh man.
Whenever she's like pointing out the cum stains on his pants, and like Roldy's like, sorry, like they knew about it, they just didn't tell him.
Oh. Man, that really hurt me. I was like, oh, he's getting like he just got
roasted.
Destroyed.
Yeah, like, roasted.
Not even in a funny way, just like I liked Bonnie.
Bonnie McMurray.
Especially Bonnie standing outside the store after it was crop dusted. I was like, okay, get behind her. She can get Wayne. Did they like up Katie's makeup and fake eyelashes in season 2? Because I was like, something seemed different about her, and I was like, I preferred season 1 Katie. I'm sorry if that's like
maybe
her looks, but I feel like that's what 90% of her character is about, her looks. So.
I'm pretty sure between season 2 and 3, she went off and was a model in like Paris or something, and comes back. So I think at the end of season 2, she like goes to the mall and like meets with a person who's like a modeling agent. I don't know if you remember seeing that.
Yeah, that's
right. We see her go off with the guy in the 3 series.
Yeah. So she, I think that was intentional. Maybe part of actually, subtle story development, character development, that she was getting more into, I guess, treat yourself so that she could be, a model.
Well, I didn't like it.
You didn't like it. I didn't
prefer that. I preferred season 1 Katie to like the more heavily makeup Katie, I guess.
I was waiting through both of these seasons for Katie to do exactly what she did at the end of season 2, which was leave.
Yeah.
Because she was another character that I kind of had trouble understanding, in that, you definitely understand that she's bored with Letterkenny. Mm-hmm. And so you almost say, so this girl who has chosen, at least for this moment, to stay in Letterkenny, like, I think either a girl like that, she's either going to be a lot trashier than Katie is, or she's going to go sooner than Katie did.
I mean, to be fair, Katie's dating 2 guys throughout the entire first season. like it's not that she's dating Riley or Jonesy. She's dating Riley and Jonesy, and they're like, yeah, this is okay. So like to your point, like, she is bored. She's making her own fun. I think in a very, I'm going to get a little philosophical here, in a very Nietzschean way, Nietzsche, she is kind of writing her own moral code, right? She agrees with the code that she was raised with, taking care of people, helping people out. But also she's like, I'm going to do what I think is right. And if I don't think it's not wrong, fuck off. And I think that gets back to why, she is dating Riley and Jonesy. And whenever they end it, they're like, you cheated on us. And she's like, I never cheated on y'all, but you cheated on me. And he's like, what? How'd she find out? You just told me, you just admitted to it. You're not too bright. She's really smart, right? And I think that that's what you're supposed to pick up on, is that this is kind of child's play. She is bored. It is just her kicking around, seeing how things shake out, encouraging her brother to get into fights. But I do think that Katie, it's more like a playground for Katie, right? Letterkenny is more just like an easy, fun place to be. She lays back, drinks beer, hangs out until she decides to go out and go modeling. So.
Cool.
I guess last kind of points about Letterkenny. Like, would you guys continue to watch? Is it something that's up your alley, or is it just kind of a fun, flash in the pan? Does it offer anything that's
how quickly does what I'll call the season 2 cliffhanger ending last? Like, does it get resolved really quickly into season 3?
I'm pretty sure it's like the first episode. Here's the thing. They do these cliffhangers, and usually the cliffhanger is dealt with the first episode of the next season, and then they're on to kind of the setting and the new stuff that's happening in the next season. So they have no problem leaving you on a cliffhanger at the end, and then taking a whole episode to resolve it, and then kind of kicking off from there.
I don't think I'll continue watching it, just because, like, the reason I want to watch it is to, like, almost like a class, to study all the little phrases and jokes and stuff, and then quote them with somebody. But it would just be y'all, and no one else that I know watches it, so I wouldn't get what I wanted out of it, I don't think. But I liked the show.
It's hard not to take that personally.
Well, to be fair, I was one of those people who went and saw Napoleon Dynamite in theaters all those years ago and quoted it to everybody, and they all thought I was crazy. Then it came out like on VHS, and everyone saw it, or DVD.
Yeah, definitely saw it first time on DVD.
And I just remember kind of being like, yeah, that was funny, like 6 months ago.
Wait, quick question. Were you acquainted with a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at that point in your life?
Was I specifically, like, I did know one, yeah.
Is that why you saw Napoleon Dynamite?
No, it wasn't. Weirdly, my friend group just was into, like, ridiculous shit, and my buddies I grew up with were like, hey, there's this weird movie playing at Legacy. You want to go see it? And I was like, sure. So we just went up there, watched it, and they literally, we got out, and they're like, we're gonna go see it again. And they went and bought tickets and saw it a second time immediately. And I was like, it's funny. I enjoyed it. I'm going to go home. Like, I don't need to see it a second time.
Okay, fair enough. Because I also saw it in theaters, and it was because I had a friend who was a Mormon, and if I remember right, he was like, "Hey, there's this movie coming out. It was made by students at like BYU Idaho, and we should go see it." And I was like, "Okay, whatever, man." We went to go see freaking Napoleon Dynamite.
That's funny. Now, yeah, it was not something that anyone, like the buddies that I had that were Mormon, like they were really into anime. So like that's what I remember about them. It didn't have anything to do with them being Mormon, but I'd like go over there and watch Princess Mononoke with them. So like that's just not the relationship I had. It was
what a subculture.
Mormon people, number one nicest people I've ever met. Some of them.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic, but also I low-key believe they're into cloning, because like every one of those kids looked identical. Like boy, girl, didn't matter, same face, different sizes, different age group, like almost same face, like just copy pasted over. I kid you not.
Well, as for the question of continuing on with Letterkenny, I think I'm definitely a yes.
Mm.
And to be candid, I watched the first episode of season 3 already, and
was my memory correct? Do they resolve the cliffhanger
immediately?
See, that's what I was saying. I was like, I feel like this is that's not a show that leaves you hanging very long.
Yeah. Oh yeah, most definitely. And there were a few complaints that I had about the show. They almost addressed or resolved pretty quickly in that next episode. Like for example, about Katie. I guess I wanted more for Katie, and then we see Katie actually go out and try for more for herself, and I really liked that. And the Squirrely Dan's speech pattern, the adding the S's to the ends of words. It's his thing, of course, but it felt like they did it too much. But then at the start of season 3, they start making fun of it. And
they do. They give him shit. Sushis and sashimis.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I might have weighted this show with my own expectations a little bit too much, in that this is probably, I think this is about my 3rd time trying to get into Letterkenny, and this is definitely the first time I've made it even through the pilot. And it's almost like it has so much potential that is not fulfilled in what we've seen so far. And so I want more from it. It's almost like it feels like it should be a comfort show for me that I welcome into my pantheon of The Office and 30 Rock and Trailer Park Boys. The shows that I can just put on. And it's not quite there for me yet. I've only seen the first 2 seasons once.
I think that in the same way that I used to describe like season 1 of like Trailer Park Boys is like silver, and then like 2 is kind of like gold, and then you get to like 3 is like platinum, and they just like really hit their stride around 3 and like all the way to 7, right? I think they knock it out of the park. I feel like the first 2 seasons, and this is the reason I wanted to kind of at least get a little bit under your belt, there's a lot of character figuring out who the characters are, what they represent, how to use them, how the interplay between them really happens. I honestly feel like season 3, 4, 5, 6, like same thing. They kind of get their stride. I will say it gets a bit bloated around like 7, 8, like, and I think as things happen, right? Like you get a bit too big for your britches. But I will say that in my opinion, like Shoresy, the little kind of like side project they did, is the culmination of all the things they've learned from this, and it's phenomenal. But I recommend that don't watch it till you're done with Letterkenny, because there's so much off-screen voice yelling from the side development of Shoresy as a character in Letterkenny. Like that character really does become its own antics, its own back and forth with Riley and Jonesy, all that stuff. It's really funny. and then they give him a show, and I think they knocked it out of the park. So I think that if you're willing to dig into it, it continues to be funny. It continues to be quotable. It continues to be memeable, but it also, I think, gets better at using these characters to explore kind of the foundational ideas they did here. Things in our culture, things in our society. Just conversations with your friends, all those different things that they kind of explore. I think they get better at doing it, while at the same time giving you a little story of and character development as our characters move forward.
Well, they gave me the best biology lesson about the penis in one of the episodes.
Vast deference.
The Florida State seminal vesicle.
This is a seminal vesicle.
Oh, excellent. Sounds like we're getting dangerously close to some ratings and reviews here, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think that it's about time for that.
Pitter patter, gentlemen.
What is the unit of rating?
Is it fucking Puppers or Gus and Bruce? Eh?
You know what? Gus and Bruce was going to be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think it's Gus and Bruce.
Which I'll admit I tried to find in real life, and it is 100% fictional.
100% fake.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a question that I had that I forgot to ask earlier. What? The icon for this show is a German Shepherd. And he's trying to breed his dog with German Shepherds, but in most of the episodes he's holding a boxer, right?
I think they have multiple dogs.
He's always holding a boxer. You hardly ever see him holding a German Shepherd except for when he's before the title credits.
I don't disagree. There's not a real good consistency on that at all, or even dogs being a part of the show later on at all. So I think it's a fair criticism to be why?
Well, I will lead off with my review here. This was a show that I enjoyed and I wanted more from. And something that dragged me down a lot was that there was a lot of times where the show just didn't know when to end the joke. And it just kept going. And it wasn't even the Family Guy joke where it's funny, then it's not funny, and then it's funny again. They never got to that looping back of the funny again. Sometimes it just went on too long. Especially the joke with the older hockey players where they go down the line and it's the same every time. Yeah. They went to that well just a few too many times. So with the caveat here that I'm very positive about the future, and I think I'm definitely going to go on to watch some more of this. I'm going to give the first 2 seasons of Letterkenny, all that we've watched so far, specifically, I'm just going to give that a 6 bottles of Gus and Bruce. Tony, how about you?
That's right where I'm at. I was going to say 6.5 Gus and Bruce. I think if my brain could process, maybe subtitles would have helped me a lot there. If I could have actually decoded all the rapid fire jokes, I think it'd be higher. And I think that's what, the strength of the show is just the constant back and forth, cutting back between the characters and they're going off on stuff. But I think my favorite parts were the slower conversations, I mentioned, the seminal vesicles, vast deferens, those are a little bit slower paced, show the intelligence and stuff like that. Just their little, not arguments, but their conversations more than they're just constant alliterations, blah 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 blah. That one, I think those were really smart and clever, but I couldn't even follow half of them. And I thought it was funny, but I really did enjoy the show. I would keep watching it. Half the reason is because I have ads with Hulu, and I'm just no, I can't watch the ads. But I did like it. I think a lot of people will like it, especially I wasn't that rural in where I lived growing up, but I was not in Dallas, so I appreciated the kind of rural atmosphere. I think if you were from that atmosphere, I think it would really hit home, even if you're not from Canada, being in America.
So both you guys 6'5" Gus and Bruce?
Jay was 6, I was 6'5".
You're 6'5". I think that's fair. I think that, like I said, the show's getting started. I think that there's a lot of potential shown. I think there's also some stumbles. I think Fart Book is actually a pretty weak episode at the end of the day.
Oh yeah,
I feel it's very
dated.
I feel like some of the character shifting was necessary ultimately long term for the health of the show, to give us a little bit more different perspective, because like McMurray like represents kind of a little more staunch hick perspective, whereas like Jerry Kiso and Derry and Dan represent a little more progressive view. So I think that they were trying to figure out how to parse some of that stuff out. And I think season 2 is at least them starting to get like some tread down, right? They're kind of starting to hit those moments.
Mhm.
We get the great stuff with Glenn and the hockey players trying to develop. I like the older players going down the line. I think that bit's actually pretty funny, because it's definitely a recurring bit because it evolves, right? And it kind of will change as they progress. But there's a lot of lingo that I had to look up and ask questions about, to my buddy, just because I was like, what does this mean? What's a schmelz? It's just, a new player on a hockey team. So
Give your balls a tug, you tit fucker.
give your balls a tug. So and I think that's the other thing, is the immersion into some of the lingo. That's where I feel like they do a really good job of making it feel very immersive. And so I'm gonna give like the beginning of Letterkenny. I think it's a solid 7. It's a good show. It's worth a watch. It's funny. It's quick. It doesn't take long. And if it does catch your interest, there's quite a bit of content to delve into. So that's kind of where I sit with it.
We got a 7, a 6, a 6.5. That makes the math very easy. That gives us a composite score of 6.5. If you gentlemen will vent for me, I can tell you where that stands all time.
Well, I think that it's going to be in the probably midpoint, because it's not a great show in the sense of how some of the shows we've watched have been just kind of knock it out of the park. But I do think that it lays a foundation for a much better show later on. And that's what's tough too about these kind of shows, is you want people to be like, give it a chance, let the characters develop some, because there is magic here. You sometimes just have to let the writers figure out how to use it.
I do appreciate that it's short and sweet. Like 6 to
Agreed.
7 20 to 30-minute episodes. It's very easily digestible.
Well, 6.5 puts it, Aaron, you're pretty much right. It's just about in the middle of the pack. It's tied with season 1 of Man in the High Castle, just below season 2 of Miracle Workers, just above season 1 of Happy! Exclamation point. God, Happy.
That was a show.
That was a show. God damn it. Well, we have now completed our assignments, and we need a new one. And to get a new show assignment, we need a wheel.
Let us enter in the wheel of randomonium. So, for this offering on the wheel, I bring the Rings of Power. It's weird because I wasn't super interested in this show, but it's received a lot of hate for being, I guess, modern by having different races of people in the show. Which to me is one of those things like I've heard all these people like bitch and moan and complain, and I've heard other people who are like outside, like I'm fine with the inclusion of minorities into the show, but also the show, the way it's written, is really Tolkien-esque. Like if you're an actual Tolkien fan, like this delivers. So I'm curious if that's true.
Ooh.
So that's why I've got Rings of Power on the list this week.
Have you seen any?
I haven't seen a second of it. I don't know anything. I haven't watched anything. I've avoided any type of previews outside of a buddy telling me that it's like a different era of Lord of the Rings, like the second era or something. Like that's all I know.
Okay.
I think it's like the Lord of the Rings books and movies, I think it's like a precursor.
Yeah, it's thousands of years in the past.
Yeah. I watched the first half of the first episode. I hear it gets much better, but there's hobbits in there, and I just don't give a flying flip about hobbits that aren't named Frodo and Bilbo. Just like
Generic hobbits.
I mean, just like like the story, the Lord of the Rings is like, okay, these little halflings that have just kind of been like not in major events of the world, like they're the ones that essentially save Middle Earth, like a little unassuming character, and like it's a good story that I can get behind. But like if we're gonna go thousands of years in the past, and I'm supposed to care about these hobbits that supposedly like as a race haven't really been involved in goings on, it's like I just don't care about these random hobbits. Like care about the OG hobbits.
Sorry. So, I think that hobbits are one of those things where you either love them or you hate them. I personally think that there's a little bit too much. I think that Tolkien just was really obsessed with his creation there, because it's like everything is from the perspective of the hobbits. But I feel like I want to see what they do with it. I want to know if the hate's worth it, if the praise is worth it, if the billions of dollars Amazon sank into it was worth it.
I've got a foil hat theory here. Man, that was a lot harder to say after a Caesar.
You see,
my foil hat theory here is that the hobbits are very transparently Tolkien mythologizing and romanticizing England and its people, and us as Americans just won't stand for that shit.
It must be on a subconscious level for me.
Well, Tony, what are you bringing for the Wheel of Randomonium?
I'm bringing an anime called Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I think it's mostly not based on the game, but it's kind of like the universe is taken more from the Cyberpunk 2077 game. But I think like the lore is created. It's either in a book or it's just like in other games, like board games and stuff. It's like a futuristic society where everyone has like cybernetic implants and like technology. But the premise is we follow this street kid named David who's basically lost everything, and he's makes a choice to survive on the wrong side of the law as an edge runner, a high-tech black market mercenary known as a cyberpunk, to quote Wikipedia there.
Is Keanu Reeves in this as well?
I don't think so. It's a different character. I don't think it's the same story from the game.
Wait, is it related to the game? Did you say that? I'm sorry.
It's in the same like Night City.
Universe.
I think it's the same like universe and same city as the game, but I don't think those characters are.
So Tony's saying that as a companion to watching the show of his wins, you have to play the game as well to understand what's going on, right?
I liked the game. That's before it was supposedly fixed and better. So the game's really fun.
Wait, you liked it and it was fun before they fixed it?
If it worked, it was like it shat a brick on people's Xboxes and PlayStations. Like if you had a computer, apparently it worked fine.
It worked fine on my Series X. There's a lot of bugs and like some of the perks and skills didn't work properly.
I mean, yeah, it was the last gen Xbox that didn't work on.
Yeah. So anyway, I've heard from a couple people that's really good, and I've heard it's good as far as like ratings go. So
all right,
to try it out.
Polish anime. I'm interested. I say Polish anime because it's made by the same people that made The Witcher, which is a Polish studio.
Oh.
Yeah, CD Projekt Red.
So, Jay, what have you welcomed us into this time?
I have offered to the Sacred Wheel of Randomonium the FX docu-series Welcome to Wrexham. It's a docu-series following Hollywood actors Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney in their purchase of a soccer team in Wales. And I'm doing this in celebration of the FIFA World Cup, which, if you're listening to this on release day, is going on right now. And the World Cup is one of my just absolute favorite things in the world. Only happens every 4 years. I'm not quite so excited about this one for reasons that we can get into on other shows. But in celebration, I have offered Welcome to Wrexham. Similarly, I love Rob McElhenney. I love soccer. But I'm kind of struggling to see how you create a root for you Cinderella story out of two very rich guys buying a sports team.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I mean, this is how they're funding the team, right? Is the show? I assume.
Yeah, I'm assuming. I think the story that we're going to be told is that the team was going to fail and go under, and these guys came in to save it. You know, I haven't seen a minute of it, so
all right,
we'll
exciting.
See.
Exciting. Let's spin this wheel and
Pitter
see
patter.
what fate has for us.
Spin, 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 spin. And it is Cyberpunk Edge Runners.
So is it bonus points if we also play the game? I think Tony's already played it. We'll have to get
well, maybe if you just speed through the story, it might be shorter. But I would say if you did a lot of the things, it'd be pretty long. So I will say no, but if you want to, go for it.
No. I was being facetious.
I hear it's pretty got some graphic gore. I don't know, not like horror gore, but I mean, obviously people are like modifying their bodies with implants and stuff, so might have a little bit of gore in it.
Got like a microchip sticking out of your forehead.
That was just a warning for Jay. So it's Dante there.
We also have the J scale, like how well we think Jay can handle it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
I feel like my tolerance has been built up slowly.
Yeah. I'm impressed with what you can handle now. So
well, thank you.
I honestly like there were some things that pushed the limits in Twin Peaks at times, and I'm very proud that you made it all the way through without like being like, nope, I'm done. Hell, you went through The Witcher and started off with an immediately no like type moment. So
well, I am committed to, above all things, the show.
Yeah, no, me too. Anything. Again, we've watched some shit.
Yeah, you know, I threw you guys a curveball a long time ago by nominating Siesta Key, and you know, I think you showed respect by sitting that out, or not sitting that out. What's the term I'm looking for here? Sticking that out.
Sticking it out. Hey, yeah, that's stick the landing.
I mean, low key, like Lois and Keys, I like Siesta Key.
Hey man, there's a new season coming out soon. They all moved to Miami.
The guy with the wired jaw's not a part of it anymore, though, right?
Oh no, he got canceled for racist tweets.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, can I submit a micro? Have y'all seen the Real Bros of Simi Valley? It's like a YouTube or a Facebook Watch. I think bought it out or something like.
No.
It's you should watch that. It's very short, or like the first season's like super short. It's on YouTube. And then it's just super stupid. It reminds me of Siesta Key. It's like it's like Real Housewives, except for it's like Real Bros of CB. I guess it's in California, but it's just if you want something like super dumb, it's pretty funny.
You'll have to send me a link because I don't even know how to watch it on Facebook Watch.
First season's on YouTube, so I guess if you hate it, then you can forgo it. But
well, it has been a ton of fun talking about Letterkenny with you boys today. I want to thank the both of you for joining me for this excellent conversation. I want to thank our executive producer, Dick Wolf, for myself, for Tony, and for Aaron.
Sorry, I turned down my sound right at the moment that you started to say that, and I missed it. So, hey, for me as well.
I will see you in the trees.
Salutations, Internet.